Well, welcome to the Summerville Museum and Research Center. For many of you, if you're anything like me, had no idea this place was here. Right? I had no idea this place was here. We've been in Summerville since 2009, my wife and I, and we came here from Germany. I'm military. Came here from Germany in 2009, and now I teach African American Studies and Human Geography at Fort Dorchester High School. And I love that job. Started out in Cross, South Carolina. I don't know if any of y'all know what Cross is. Really? I taught at Cross for 9 years.
From Cross, and I went to school.
I just drove from Cross.
Yeah, I taught at Cross for 9 years. Then I switched over to Fort because Cross is an hour drive from my house, and Fort is 8 minutes. So I kind of like that. So as I said, we are a museum and a research center. We actually have the Dr. Ed West Library upstairs where people can come and learn more about Summerville, and we're trying to rearrange the library to make it more like a library instead of a room full of books and stuff that we got to try to dig through to find stuff out. So we're getting a lot more organized up there. So if you're ever interested in learning more that way, you can do it. The easiest way, come to my lecture. I say my lectures, but I call our lead historian, Dr. Ed West. Pray for him. He's going through cancer struggles right now, so hopefully we can get him back soon. And he really digs into the history of Summerville. So I love working with Dr. Ed West. So other than that, good morning. Welcome to our lecture. And we're really, my focus is always on, I started, thank you. I told her to remind me to start the camera. She did her job. What was I saying? Threw me off. Let me just go back to my notes. That way I'll be on track. So last month, it was really exciting. Get a chance to talk about Black History Month. Got a chance to take it from a different angle for those that were here, talking about the history of minority-owned businesses. So that's what last month's focus was on. Come on in, come on in. And in that focus, I identified women-owned businesses as another form of minority-owned businesses because they often have the same kind of struggles that people of different ethnicities have trying to fit into a society or get funding or benefits and things of that nature. So that's why that lecture was about. So if you get a chance, it should be on the website soon. We're having some problems with the website. So I don't think that lecture is up there just yet. Now for me, just to be honest, I'm a girl dad. So I love histories that demonstrate anything about the success of girls or women. Anything that shows my girls there's nothing you can't do, there's nothing you can't be. And I love the fact that in my research I can find a lot of examples to give to them and say, look, if she did it, you can do it. And I'm excited. One daughter, my oldest, she's an actress, model, dancer in the Atlanta area. And my youngest, in May, she will become Dr. Scarlett. She'll be a veterinarian graduating from NC State Veterinary School. So our girls have done quite well. We're very, very, very proud of them. So just like Black History Month, though, which was created by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, originally Black History Month started out as Negro History Week. And although you hear a lot of black folks say, man, they gave us February because it's the shortest month of the year. That ain't right, right? It had nothing to do with that. It's just the uneducated saying that. The reason why it's in February is because Dr. Carter G. Woodson wanted to celebrate the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and of Abraham Lincoln. Although the story of Frederick Douglass is an interesting one, since he really doesn't know what his birthday is. So he picked February 14th as his birthday because his mother used to call him her little Valentine. So he selected February 14th to be honored as his birthday since he never knew what it was. But just like that, Women's History Month really started as Women's History Week. Celebration in Santa Rosa, California in 1978, organized by a woman by the name of Gerda Lerner and the Sonoma County Commission on the Status of Women to highlight contributions of women in education. That was the original purpose for Women's History Week at that time. And of course, it really look at it, it started as Women's History Day. They only had a day to begin with. Then they got a week, things got kind of good, right? So it was intentionally timed to coincide with International Women's Day on March 8th. But due to a lot of pressure, you women can be very Persuasive, there you go, that's a nice word, it keeps me out of trouble. Very persuasive. It became a federally recognized week in 1981. Women's History Alliance decided to keep pressing Congress even more, and Congress designated March as Women's History Month in 1987. So maybe y'all keep pushing, we'll get that female president. So keep on pushing, there's more to be done. So this month serves to honor the achievements, leadership, and contributions of women in various fields throughout American history. And that's exactly what our focus is on today. That's what we're going to plan to do. Celebrating women, what those accomplishments were. The month serves to honor those women. And as many of you know, well, not many of you, because we got a lot of new faces in here. I don't see a lot of my regulars. And it's fascinating, because the reason why I got so excited to see you all last week, because normally this room is filled with 65 and over white people. That's 90% of my audience. So I'm like, where'd they go? What happened to them? I haven't seen them in the last 2 months. So I got to start reaching out. So it's nice to see a little more diversity in here as we talk about these wonderful women of all ethnicities, as we're going to do today. All right. So I love the fact that I found fascinating histories of so many women right here in South Carolina. Most of the days, and when we say most, I say all of today's honorees, and that's unusual for me. Usually for me, I start way out, United States wide, and then I narrow things down. Come on in, don't be shy. And I narrow things down to eventually get down to Summerville itself. Right? But in this research for this month, there were so many fascinating women in South Carolina that I did not have to go outside of South Carolina to celebrate Women's History Month. That usually doesn't happen. But what's interesting is I'm not shy. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to like Third Thursday that we have here in Summerville. So during Third Thursday, I'll be out there and I will just talk to anybody walking by. See what I'm saying? I need to know about some successful women in the history of Summerville. Go. I just walk to the table, folks just having a bottle of wine, just having a nice time. I just slide on in there. Hey, how you doing? Sorry about that. Ask y'all some questions. But what surprised me is 95%, I don't think I'm saying that too high, 95% of people I talk to, they said, it's a shame, I can't think of one woman from Summerville that's ever done anything. I'm like, that can't be right. That can't be right. And so, then I went, what do you do? Post it on Facebook. Somebody tell me something. And I got a couple of names, I'll talk about them, but even then, I still was not getting a lot. So that's when I had to put my researcher hat on and really start going out trying to find some things for myself. And I did. So I cannot complain about what I did finally find. So today we're going to start with a young lady who quickly grew into an important woman in South Carolina history. But I got to be honest, this is definitely a case of me prioritizing Rob Scarlett, the historian, over Rob Scarlett, the African American. I say that because my first celebrated woman profited from her intelligence, from her tenacity, but also on the backs of enslaved Africans. Eliza Lucas Pinckney. She was born on the island of Antigua, but was sent to South Carolina when she was 16 years old. She lived on Wapu Plantation on James Island, and she was very interested in botany. So she wanted to find a way to increase the agricultural income of South Carolina. So let me try some things and see what might actually work. So after trial and error, she settled on planting indigo. Anybody know what indigo produces? That blue dye, right? So she said, no one's really doing this, so let me give that a try. Right? Her neighbors, of course, ridiculed her. You don't know what you're doing. You can't do this. I'm sure a lot of that had to be with being a young female, right? Especially back then, not thinking she could do anything. But after trial and error, indigo is what she went with. Her experiments with indigo were ridiculed, but years of persistence paid off. There's that female persistence again. Paid off in 1744, when she was able to grow enough indigo to begin the process of dye production. Eliza planted her indigo across Wapu Creek, and on what is now known as West Ashley. However, that same year, she learned that her father wanted the family to move back to Antigua. So her dreams seemed like they would be shattered. But Eliza was saved by someone else's tragedy. Having recently been widowed, Charles Pinckney proposed to young Eliza. He was 45, she was 22. Marriage saved her from moving back with her father to Antigua. Eliza's indigo production flourished. In 1745, only 5,000 pounds of indigo were exported from the Charleston area. But within 2 years, Eliza's efforts increased that volume to 130,000 pounds of indigo. How did she accomplish so much? First, she was brilliant and self-confident, despite being a young lady during that day and age. But she didn't do it on her own. She managed several indigo plantations, where she held substantial numbers of enslaved people throughout her life, with estimates suggesting that she kept 200 to 300 enslaved laborers at the time of her death. By the beginning of the American Revolution, indigo made up 1/3 of the exports leaving South Carolina. Today, indigo is an important symbol in South Carolina. It is the state's official color and is seen on the state's flag. So the color of the South Carolina flag is indigo blue. Eliza Pinckney had an impact on South Carolina that is lasting. So in 1989, took him a minute, Eliza was the first woman inducted into the South Carolina Business Hall of Fame for her contributions to South Carolina's agricultural history. As I said, it took a minute, but they finally recognized her. Now, two sisters that I really, really like. I love talking about them when I talk in my class. And we can throw an actual sister in there at the end of this. So next, two courageous Charleston, South Carolina sisters, Sarah Grimke and Angelina Grimke. Anybody heard of them before? Yes. Yeah, a couple of people heard about them. They grew up in a family of wealth and privilege. If you ever go down on East Bay Street, there's a yellow house, and the marker outside tells you that's where they lived. It's still there. A big yellow house. Down there not too far from the Gilliard Center. It is still there. The sisters witnessed firsthand the injustice of slavery as the daughters of enslavers. As women, they too experienced social inequality. They were denied the right to vote, something that I always say to my students. One of my students sitting back there right now, so she's used to hearing this. It still amazes me that black men, formerly enslaved laborers, got the right to vote 50 years before white women did. Imagine that. 50 years before white women did, black men got the right to vote. What does that tell you about the status of women during that time? I try not to let my students lose sight on that. There was a lot of forms of oppression back then. It was not just those enslaved, but those enslaved in another way. They were just called wives. And I can go a lot deeper into that. I heard some witnesses out there. I want to start nothing. I need me to go home tonight. Okay, so anyway, their stance against slavery and a slave-owning family led to them having to flee South Carolina. No surprise. But they became renowned proponents of emancipation and suffrage. They moved to what I tell my students is the greatest city on the face of the earth. You know, can you tell where I'm from? I'm from Philly. So I say, hey, anything you hear something about Philly, it's got to be great, right? Despite people taking slavery off of George Washington's house at Independence Hall. I'm sure y'all have heard that story, right? Yeah. But the court said they got to put it back. So I don't want to get off on a tangent, because then it'd be like in my classroom. And Melissa back there has heard enough of that. Okay, let me keep going. So those women directly impacted the life of a young African-American woman named Scarlett Fortin, who blessed the people of South Carolina directly. After attending normal school, if you don't know what normal school was a school where you go to learn to be an elementary school teacher. And if you've ever been to the Avery Center downtown, that was a normal school. It began as a normal school. A lot of black teachers started their careers by being trained there at the Avery Center, which is now a research place and a museum, kind of like this place. So I like going to the Avery Center. So Fortin joined black and white northern women who journeyed to the Union-occupied coastal sea islands of South Carolina to teach the formerly enslaved people. So she came here as an educator, person after my heart, right? So Fortin later published an essay titled Life on the Sea Islands in the Atlantic Monthly in May and June of 1864 about her work with the Sea Island Mission. The Fortin family maintained a healthy relationship in association with the abolitionist side of the Grimke family. I mean, I call this really connecting to the Grimke family because Charlotte Fortin became Charlotte Fortin Grimke when she married Francis James Grimke. I can imagine how her parents felt about that because they were the slave owners. That would have been very interesting. And this next young lady, I was just talking to somebody about this before we started the lecture. Lower Town. How many of you have ever been to the Penn Center? Oh, a couple of people. That is great. So I'll explain what that is in a moment. It was cool. I took one of the kids that I mentor out to the Penn Center, and it's a great place. And did you know also that Dr. King wrote part of his I Have a Dream speech at the Penn Center? Yeah, exciting. He made regular trips to the Penn Center. This was one of his refuge places where he would come to get away from everything right there in the water. So that's exciting. That's exciting. Sadly, they built a house for him and his family since he came so often. But once they finished the house, he was assassinated. So he never got a chance to come out and stay at the place that they created for him. That's not part of my lecture. That's just get that for free. Okay? So continuing the theme of education, allow me to introduce Lower Town. In 1862, this dedicated abolitionist moved from Pennsylvania to St. Helena Island, near Beaufort. Here, after an early and resounding Union defeat, white owners had abandoned 10,000 formerly enslaved workers. Can you imagine that? Just wake up one day like, yo, where are white people? What do we do now? Just abandon them. They just left before the Union soldiers could get there. I'm sure they weren't complaining, but they just left them there. So Miss Town was one of many northern educators and missionaries who moved south to help those emancipated men and women, trying to help them build new lives. You can imagine that transition. She was unique in that she stayed. She made her permanent home on St. Helena Island. She opened a Penn School, today known as Penn Center, where students learned reading and writing with marketable skills like basket making, cobbling, and carpentry for young folks, cobbling and shoemaking. In case you didn't know that, shoe repair. So if you haven't been a chance to go out there, that building still there is now a museum. So you can go out there, you can go visit the classrooms, you can go visit a lot of the guy took me out to the cabin where Dr. King usually stayed. But if you go there in the summertime, I'm telling you, that cabin must have a 1 million mosquito population. Man, I'm like, all right, that's cool. Love it, brother. Let's go. It was really bad out there. Another one of our heroes, Septima P. Clark. I love this quote. The greatest evil in our country today is ignorance. We need to be taught to study rather than to believe. Wow. How many people do we have right now just believe what certain people say? Don't bother to research. Don't bother to learn for yourselves. Don't bother to figure out what the truth is. They said it. It was on social media. It must be true. Right? A lot of my students believe anything they see on social media is true. How many different stars of the next Black Panther movie have you seen on social media? They put everybody up there. Surprised they didn't have Bill Cosby up there by now. Whole different story. All right, another South Carolina woman, Septima P. Clark. Some of you may have driven down Septima P. Clark Parkway to get here. She is known as the Queen Mother of the Civil Rights Movement. Septima Clark was a leader in the NAACP, a member of Dr. King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and the Highlander School. The Highlander School taught strategies for nonviolent resistance and school desegregation. A few of its most famous students were Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, Diane Nash, and Rosa Parks. So y'all just thought Rosa Parks was a tired lady on a bus. No, she was an example of preparation meeting opportunity. She was trained. She was ready. Septima Clark's most important work in Charleston and around South Carolina was the establishment of citizenship schools across the South. These schools taught black people how to read so they could vote. due to those Jim Crow laws and the literacy test. I actually make my students take a literacy test. They take the Louisiana's literacy test. And boy, do they complain. They complain because it gives you 10 minutes to do it. I tell them I did it in 16 minutes. So it's if you've never seen a literacy test, look up the Louisiana literacy test. They call it the Louisiana intelligence test. Look it up and try to do it. It is crazy. It is crazy. But that's what they did. But here in South Carolina, we had the literacy test, and we had the 8-box law. Anybody know what the 8-box law was? No, Lisa, we didn't talk about it in class. Don't worry, you didn't forget something. 8-box law is they knew they couldn't read. So instead of one voting box for one candidate and one for another, they put 8 boxes out there with different words and phrases on each box. So they wouldn't know which one to really put their ballot in. Anything they could do to disenfranchise the formerly enslaved. Okay, in all, these schools enabled 2 million African Americans to vote. 2 million, that's a lot of impact. When Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, he asked Mrs. Clark to accompany him to Norway, saying she deserved the award as much as he did. That's impressive. So now's that time, the moment that makes these lectures special. Let's talk Summerville history. Stories of some of the often overlooked people who made and continue to make Summerville extraordinary in many ways. We cannot talk about women in Summerville without talking about Kitty Springs. We just cannot. If you know us here at the Summerville Museum, we got to talk about her. We describe Kitty simply as a mixed-race woman. An article that was shared with me said that she was the great-granddaughter of a woman born off the coast of Africa, while her family speaks of her as being of Cherokee Indian descent. It really doesn't matter. She was an outstanding young lady who did impressive things, especially for her mixed ethnicity in the early South. Kitty Springs was a Charleston dressmaker with a thriving King Street business who opened a hair and dress shop here in Summerville. She married Richard Springs, a white man, a dry goods merchant with a store on Hutchinson Square, and she also had a store on Hutchinson Square. It's the one that says the old post office. That used to be Kitty Springs' store. But mainly she sold by taking a cart. You see this little picture? That painting was actually done by Dr. Ed West. Taking a cart around town, and she would sell out of cart. She would sell hats and dresses out of cart, whatever it took to be successful. Because of interracial marriage was not recognized in South Carolina, she was listed as her husband's housekeeper in his will. We cherish Kitty Springs mainly because she donated a lot of money and land to build landmark institutions, such as the Church of the Epiphany, the Bank School, which was the earliest beginning of education for black students in Summerville. Kitty Springs donated land, mortgaged one of her cottages, and took out a loan to gather funds for the new buildings. Her generosity supported the St. Barnabas Mission, also known as the Red School, for poor white and American Indian children. The mission was a day school that also served as a public health center and a mission church. The Red School, as it is often called, operated from 1883 until well into the 1930s and 40s, when they were forced to integrate into the normal school system. Her building, the Elf's Health Center, Barnaby Mission, was built at the intersection of North Main Street and Highway 78 in Summerville, if you can picture that area in your head. By 1896, the mission was serving 42 families made up of 185 people. Another example of prioritizing history is our next Summerville great. She's one of the first generation of children born in what we call Old Summerville. Sue Lining Gelser was a little girl running the streets of Old Summerville in the 1830s, unaware that one day she'd play a role in our nation's most tragic and deadliest conflict. Around here, we know Sue Gelser as Gunboat Sue. You ever heard of her before? Ah, good. Gunboat Sue. Her dedication and commitment to her beloved Confederacy led her to spearhead a massive fundraising effort to construct armored warships to defend Charleston Harbor during the American Civil War. Gunboat Sue's efforts led to the construction of 2 gunboats for the Confederate Navy, the CSS Palmetto State and the CSS Chicora. In an article in the Post and Courier, according to official history, on March 1st, 1862, Miss Sue wrote a letter to the Charleston Daily Courier, noting that the ladies in New Orleans had given an order for a gunboat and suggested that the ladies of Charleston do the same. Her efforts resulted in raising $30,198.53. That's a lot in 1862. That's impressive. She got that money from all over the South. People from all over the South were sending in donations. That was more than enough to build their first ship, the CSS Palmetto State. At a wharf on the Cooper River, with the background of thunder and the presence of Confederate General Beauregard and other dignitaries in Charleston at the time, Susan Lining Gelser stood on the deck of the ironclad, broke a bottle of champagne over the ship's bow, and christened her the Palmetto State. Sue was also a member of the Summerville Vivandiers. Anybody ever heard the term Vivandiers? Really, you'd have to go back to Napoleon's army in France to see the beginning of the Vivandiers. Vivandiers were women that followed the troops and provided services for the troops, like washing their clothes. Some of them even had carts where they sold things to the soldiers during the war. But they would be there to help out the soldiers, and they did that here in Summerville as well. So let's switch gears a little and talk about another type of battlefield, the world of education. I can say that because I teach high school. It is another form of battle. I often joke around with my students on a bad day sometimes. Man, I had it easier when I was in Iraq. And sometimes I feel that way. You know, at least I can see the stuff coming at me in Iraq. Just, you never know what's going to come out of these kids' mouths. Or their parents. Let me stop right there. I can go some places with that. Okay, anyway. One of our favorites here. Frances Beecher Perkins. I don't have that in here, but I want to make sure I mention something great about her husband, Chaplain Beecher, who was a commander of the Army unit here. He has a very famous sister, and it kind of explains why he was so good to his black troops and volunteered to command black troops. His sister's name, you might know? Harriet Beecher Stowe. Uncle Tom's Cabin. You know, that was his sister, or to be precise, his half-sister. Okay? So education was on the mind of this Army wife, Frances Beecher, in Summerville during the American Civil War. In an article published in New England Magazine, 1898, we actually have this copy upstairs in our research library. So when I researched her, I actually read, I feel bad because some of the pages kept coming apart. So the binding is really old, so I tried to treat it as carefully as I could, turning the pages to get her story. But we have that in our research library upstairs, in our Dr. Ed West library. We learned about the wife of a commander who was in charge of a regiment of United States colored troops, 35th South Carolina Regiment. Did you know that the 35th United States colored troops were stationed in Summerville? Yes, yeah, of course you know those. You told me. So yes, colored troops were stationed right here in Summerville. Another lecture that I talk about, Buffalo soldiers were stationed in Summerville. So it's really a lot, yeah, I know, right? Really a lot of history. So I gotta come back, run that series back just for y'all. Just for y'all. Okay, so let me get back on that. So Frances Beecher, later Frances Beecher Perkins, the wife of Colonel James Beecher, discussed her efforts to educate the black troops under her husband's command. She stated, and I quote, "My mornings were spent in teaching the men of our regiment to read and write, and it became my pleasing duty and habit, whenever our moving tents were pitched, there to set up our school. Sometimes the chaplain assisted, and sometimes the officers. And the result was that when the men came to be mustered out, each one of them could proudly sign his name to the payroll in a good legible hand. When enlisted, all but 2 or 3 of them were obliged to put a mark to their names." Frances Beecher went on to say, whenever they had a spare moment, out would come a spelling book or a primer or a testament, and you would often see a group of heads around one book. Now, when I talk about this in my class, my students get tired of it. Like, look, they beg to learn. You do your best to avoid it. How ridiculous is that? But just give me that look. So her efforts didn't stop at the end of the war. Even when the unit got disbanded, after the Union Army took command of Charleston, public schools were established, and Frances Beecher Perkins became principal pro tem of one of the schools. According to her, the school had 30 teachers and 600 students. And I love this part. 1 floor of white children and 3 floors of black students. These formerly enslaved and free black children, just like the soldiers, showed an eagerness to receive the education that they had long been denied. All right, y'all ready? You sure y'all ready? All right? All right. Everybody else ready? So the efforts of strong women like Frances Beecher Perkins and Catherine Kitty Smith Springs is continued in this organization of intelligent, educated women. In 1908, Howard University co-ed Ethel Hegemon's dream of a support network for women came to life as Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated, the first Negro Greek letter sorority. The group continues to bless America, South Carolina, and Summerville today. I'm extremely excited to talk about a new relationship with this old organization. Really excited. Who promises to continue to connect with and support the educational efforts of the Summerville Museum and Research Center. So allow me to introduce you to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and their local chapter, Sigma Upsilon Omega. Did I say that correctly? Upsilon? Oh, Upsilon. I would have never got that. Sigma Upsilon Omega. I kind of like how that sounds. All right, according to the history on their official website, the organization was founded on January 15, 1908 at Howard University by Ethel Hegemon Lyle and 8 other collegiate women who, by merit and by culture, embodies the ideas for Negro progress. Their official colors are salmon pink and apple green. The organization was incorporated in 1913. This gave them license to broaden their service concept and multiply. By 1921, AKA had established its first 10 undergraduate chapters. To increase their outreach, they created their own quarterly newsletter called the Ivy Leaf in 1921. The group did not waste time making their presence known. They sent a telegram to President Warren G. Harding urging passage of an anti-lynching bill. Y'all wasted no time. In 1934, they sponsored the Mississippi Health Project to provide proper health care to African American communities. This initiative became their most widely known expression of social responsibility, which immortalized AKA as a national organizational force. To further increase their impact, they became one of the first Greek organizations to take a life membership with the NAACP. I'm also a life member with the NAACP. To join their fight for justice. During their 50th anniversary, they donated $50,000 to support research studies on sickle cell anemia, a terrible disease that disproportionately impacts African American communities. They also supported black business, entrusting an initial investment of $38,000 in the first and only Negro firm in the Wall Street area at that time. To show just how impactful they were, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. attended their 1964 National Convention in the great city of Philadelphia. I added the great. Receiving the first Anna Eleanor Roosevelt Medallion of Honor. Later, Mrs. Coretta Scott King was made an honorary AKA member. Even more impressive, in 1965, AKA secured a $4 million contract from the Office of Economic Opportunity to operate the first federal Job Corps Center for women. Providing
in Cleveland, Ohio.
Say it again?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
And oh, okay. In Cleveland, Ohio. That's where you from? I like that. Somebody else repping their city. Go, girl. All right. In Cleveland, Ohio. I like that. Although I'm a Steelers fan. Providing education and job training for 325 women between the ages of 16 and 21. As the organization grew, so did their generosity. In the 1970s, they made their first installment of a commitment to donate $500,000 for the United Negro College Fund. This was only the beginning. In 1980, they created the Alpha Kappa Alpha Educational Advancement Foundation that annually awards more than $100,000 in scholarships, grants, and fellowships. In the 1990s, the sorority partnered with the American Red Cross to attack AIDS in the African American community and launched a campaign to add minorities to the National Bone Marrow Registry. I am also a proud member of the Bone Marrow Registry. So that's beautiful work. Alpha Kappa Alpha celebrated 100 years of sisterhood and service. They became the first black women's group to mark a centennial, the first organization to have Pennsylvania Avenue closed for a march to the Capitol. And on a cooler note, they were the first women's group to have a Barbie created in its honor. That's badass. Oh, I like that. I gotta get, are they still on the market? I gotta get one of those, put that in my classroom.
You can come look at mine.
So between 2010 and 2014, their Emerging Young Leaders program developed the skills and talents of middle school girls in grades 6 through 8 with potential for becoming leaders within their local communities. Now let's talk about what they're doing in Summerville in the Low Country. Chartered on June 17, 1990, the Sigma Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has remained a steady and impactful presence in Summerville and surrounding communities. Since its establishment, the chapter has greatly expanded the footprint of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in the area and continues to serve as an integral part of the civic and cultural fabric of Dorchester County. Today, Sigma Upsilon Omega is actively uplifting the community through a wide range of meaningful initiatives that reflect a deep commitment to service and sisterhood. And now I have something to ask y'all about, so I gotta explain this one. The chapter currently distributes chip bags to students at Beach Hill Elementary School to help address food insecurity and ensure children have nutritious meals throughout the year. Can anybody tell me what a chip bag is? I assume it's food, a bag of food to give out to kids that need the food. So when I see chip bag, I'm like, all right, give me a bag of chips. I'll give a bag of chips. But it's spelled C-H-I-P-P.
Childhood hunger. What's the rest of it?
All right, y'all can Google that while I'm
something like the
childhood hunger
initiative.
power pack.
It's like the backpack buddies that schools normally have.
Oh, okay. I knew it was something greater than a bag of chips. Just the way it was spelled. So I want you guys to explain. So thank you for that. So during the past holiday season, members participated in community turkey giveaway to support families in need and help make the season a little brighter. The chapter also hosts the Youth Leadership Institute. Aren't y'all tired, man? Man, I know y'all are no ways tired. I don't like that. So the chapter also hosts the Youth Leadership Institute for students ages 12 to 14, cultivating confidence, character, and leadership skills, while equipping young people to become thoughtful, engaged leaders in their schools and communities. In addition to youth programming, the chapter promotes health and wellness through blood drives in partnership with the American Red Cross, toy drives for the students of Austin Bailey Elementary School to bring joy and relief to local families. Members maintain a strong presence at the Faith Sellers Senior Center in Summerville by hosting monthly activities that foster fellowship, connection, and meaningful engagement with seniors. The chapter has also hosted town halls and voter education initiatives. I hope y'all busy with that one now. In collaboration with fellow Black Greek letter organizations, local churches, and high schools to empower residents with information and encourage active civic participation. Through consistent service, education, advocacy, and outreach, Sigma Upsilon Omega remains deeply committed to strengthening families and creating lasting impact throughout Summerville and Dorchester County. AKAs, thank you for all that you do. Now maybe my wife stopped telling me I'm doing too much. She give me a look like, yeah, they ain't gonna bail you out, bro. They ain't gonna bail you out. So sadly, I'm going from this joyous conversation to something even more important to me, especially as a girl dad, but not always easy to talk about. So please allow me to turn this celebration of these wonderful ladies to an important way we can protect or rescue the next generation of AKAs, the next generation of civil rights leaders, the next generation of public servants, or simply the next generation of productive Americans. Young girls, young ladies, and even young boys are in danger every day in our community and beyond. When I was planning this talk, this topic would not have entered my mind if not for a chance encounter during Third Thursday. As I was walking around conducting bold, on-the-spot interviews of whoever would stop and talk to me about the women of Summerville or the artistic scene of Summerville, which I'm working on another lecture on, I stopped at a booth that I recognized. I recognized it because my daughter, the model, had modeled in an awareness event sponsored by Doors of Freedom Foundation. This group is truly doing the Lord's work, striving to rescue our children from the hell of the local sex slave trade. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said the local sex slave trade. When I was speaking to a woman on Third Thursday, she pointed down the street and she said there was a hotel that we grabbed one, I'll use the term that we're more familiar with, one pimp from that hotel. And they arrested one pimp from that hotel. From that one pimp, we got 100 girls. Think about that. 100 girls. This isn't a big town. And I'm sure, as often the case, those girls didn't all come from Summerville. They were dragged here from other places. But I tell my students, and Lisa can tell you, especially my female students, I tell them, this is here, this is real. You need to know where you're going, know who you're talking to. You know, try not to go anywhere by yourself as a young lady. They need to be educated. Of course, my daughters are tired of hearing me talk about it. But now they're out in the world, so I got to put them in God's hands and leave it at that for as much as I could. Okay. So, as their 2025 Impact Report states, at Doors of Freedom, we provide safe places for minor survivors of sex trafficking to experience a transformed life. The young girls who enter our home have endured unimaginable experiences in their short lives. Yet even in the aftermath of profound trauma, we see remarkable courage and an enduring capacity for hope. They go on to say our role is to walk beside her, providing safe housing, individualized education, therapeutic services, and comprehensive health care support. With 2 homes fully operational throughout 2025, Doors of Freedom welcomed 13 new residents, bringing the total number of residents served during the year to 19. That is 19 girls who are no longer being trafficked, no longer being abused, and 19 families no longer wondering where their daughter is and what she is enduring day after day. As a girl dad, that just might break me. What does it take to make this happen? Let me throw some numbers at you to bring this effort into perspective. In 2025, they provided 2,838 nights of sleep in a safe bed, did 407 fun outings in the community, 413 loads of laundry, 1,639 days of school in what they call her academy, 818 therapeutic meetings with program staff, and provided 8,519 meals around the table. Together, these numbers tell the story of consistency, care, and healing, living out day by day. But here are some numbers that are not so promising. In 2025, Doors of Freedom operated on a total revenue of around $580,000. $580,000 against total expenses of $1.8 million, reflecting a net operational loss of over $200,000. There are several ways you can help. To learn more, information is on the screen. I pray that did not ruin your mood too much. But as they said to me directly, their biggest need is awareness. Awareness that this is a problem in our community, awareness that our children are at risk, and unsurprisingly, an awareness that the greatest tool used by human traffickers is your child's cell phone and their social media apps. The way they explain it to me, the most basic way they get their girls is they just send out a whole bunch of messages to different girls, and they just simply say something like, "You're so beautiful," and wait for that one insecure girl that's never been told that before to answer back. Then they start up a conversation, arrange a meetup, and we don't see that girl again. Girls need to know that. They need to know that's out there. All right, so, sorry, Betty. Because as we transition back to the greatness of Summerville, we talk about somebody I am honored to actually have in front of me right now. This young lady, Betty Settle. Summerville Orchestra. And when I do my artistic series, we'll talk more about the orchestra. Betty Settle, a 5-year-old piano player who discovered the violin in school. But as parents, we understand, because we went through sewing machines, pianos, flutes, right? So kids like to change their mind. So when she discovered the violin, they were like, "Look, we already bought you piano lessons. We're not getting you a violin. Okay, we're not doing that." But she was tenacious. She would not be denied. So with the help of her mother, she procured her grandmother's old violin. And that borrowed violin brought her joy all the way through high school. But when she attended Furman College, they didn't have an orchestra. So her violin days appeared to be over. But as we know, appearances can be deceiving. It took many years. And after retiring in 2003 from careers at the Social Security Administration and as a personal financial planner, her dream of playing an orchestra again was given new life when she read an advertisement for a meeting for anyone interested in bringing music to Summerville. Although she viewed herself as a rusty musician, I love that term, she decided to check it out. To her surprise, the majority of people who attended the meeting wanted to sing. Although her dream of partnering with a local group of musicians seemed to be dashed, the city benefited because from that meeting, the Summerville Singers was formed. More on them later when we talk about the scenes of Summerville in the next lecture. So not to be deterred, Betty placed her own advertisement in the paper. I told you, y'all women are hungry. I'd be like, "Well, I want something, I'm just gonna go get it." Man. And then she pulled, and what it said in the newspaper was, "If you are a rusty musician and would like to play again, come to this meeting." This meeting of 15 people started a journey that eventually led to her and others founding the Summerville Community Orchestra, later renamed the Summerville Orchestra. More on them in the next lecture. So this group of rusty musicians, brought together by Betty Settle, now features 90 musicians. Betty served as executive director for 5 years. Yeah. The current director is Nina Khan. During that time, her biggest challenge was getting the word out, letting people know the orchestra existed and when and where the concerts were being held. Now they have a great space. They perform at Summers Corner Concert Hall. When asked what she wanted people to know about her, she simply said, "I hope they would understand, or I hope I would be considered a woman of my word. If I said I would do it, I would do it." And she did it. Summerville Orchestra continues to feature local artists, but has graduated from rusty musicians to a rigorous interviewing process. Nevertheless, they still have one rusty musician from the original 15, still playing the piano today, 87-year-old Betty Settle. I'm honored that you would come here today. And she actually sat down, we had a nice interview over dinner. So she was very gracious with her time, and I truly appreciate that. I'm not done with her yet, because I'm still got to get some more information when we talk about the orchestra itself. Now, another local artist, and I do mean artist, Diane Frankenberg. My next impactful woman is a very young, 82-year-old, young compared to you, baby, right?
Yeah.
82-year-old military brat, her dad was in the Navy, and military spouse, who grew up all over the place. I had the privilege of sitting down in a lovely shop called People, Places, and Quilts, owned and operated by Diane Frankenberger and a team of talented artists. If you've never been there, it's right there on Richardson Avenue. You know, nice little shop. And as she says, she loves people that don't know what they're doing to come in and she'll teach you some stuff. All kind of stuff you can do in there. It's not just quilting. Her artistic journey began as a young child. Her mother signed her up for art lessons, and her father used to buy her little drawing books. But that's a huge leap from drawing books to business owner. Diane, the entrepreneur, was inspired by a successful man, a black man with only a 4th grade education, who gave her excellent advice on buying real estate. He said, buy property that no one else wants and divide it into as many businesses as you can. When she moved to Summerville in the late 1980s, she saw the old Coffin's hardware store. She saw an opportunity. The one thing she added to the old man's advice was a desire to simply be fair and treat everyone with respect. She put $1,000 down, but later got cold feet and backed out of the deal. But then her friend Michael reminded her that the old hardware store building was still for sale, and she went for it. Diane spoke about seeing it before she even started refurbishing the building. She had a vision. She promised me that she was not on drugs. In her words, she said, I saw what it needed to be. I saw how I wanted it. That's true vision. When I asked why she wanted the building, this proud Christian woman paid homage to her great-grandfather, Moses Frankenberger, of Hebrew descent, who came over from Bavaria, Germany in the 1850s and had a 9-store property. Sadly, that transition to America was not easy, as his first store was burned by the Confederate Army. She said her mother told her that starting this business was her getting in touch with her Jewish retail roots. For Diane, this was unusual because she was raised in a proud Catholic family that had never mentioned their Jewish heritage. Wonder why, right? With no formal education in retail, she just went for it. Her current business started out as her first foray into property management, as she leased the spaces to 9 different businesses. Finding funding to maintain a business can be very tricky, and you definitely don't expect to find inspiration in the waiting area of your local Jazzy Cuts barbershop. But that's what happened to Diane. While waiting to get her haircut, she picked up a business magazine and read an article that recommended buying stock in the Hershey Chocolate Company. To her surprise, that stock tripled over the years, providing her with the funds to complete the renovation on the rest of that building she bought. Now I have to be careful about the next key to her success, because I don't want to give my wife any idea. Diane said one of her greatest accomplishments, the thing that really enabled her to soar, was getting rid of her husband. She said the divorce resulted in her gaining full control of the property, but also all the debts that came with it. But with her Hershey stock investment, and by selling her wedding ring, she was able to keep moving forward. She then took advantage of business classes for entrepreneurs called SCORE through the Chamber of Commerce. I didn't know about that. So if anybody has a business, free classes through the Chamber of Commerce. One instructor told her that she would always be successful. When she asked him why he would say that, he said, and this is good for anyone in their life, he said, because you know what you don't know, and you're not afraid to go for help. A lot of people go down through stubbornness and pride. Diane considers herself more of a folk artist. When describing her quilt making, she said she does not like perfection. The lines don't have to be perfectly straight. She touted the fact that the first art exhibit presented by the Public Works Art Center was a show of her quilts called Southern Textiles Evangelism. I love it in her shop because she got Christian verses all over the places, and she puts that into her art. In her business, she takes pride in helping any artist who may not be sure how to get started on a project. It doesn't matter if you're 2 years old, for whom she has magic fabric that glows in the dark, or a person wanting to start a business. But she said usually people will come in and just want a little help. And we're glad to help them, even if they did not buy their fabrics in her store. But she says, don't take advantage of us. You know how people can be. She went on to say, I do all kinds of things. We all do. People want to learn how to do something, or people may just want to play. No matter what, people are treated as equals, but there is no bad language. You're not going to smoke, and you're not going to swear. Laying down the law. She also supports the larger community through her donation table. They clean up the donated items and put them on the pay-as-you-can table, and uses those funds to help those in need. As Diane said about donations, if we, just some little dinky store, can give $3,984, think of what Google or Walmart could or should do. Her store has blessed places like C.E. Williams School, who has a sewing department to whom they donated a sewing machine and supplies. She also regularly helps the senior center. The fabrics they use come from all over the world: Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Africa, Australia, India, etc. But everything she sells is crafted by hand, either in the store or in the homes of the artisans that produce the fabrics. Over time, all the vendors were gone, and she had the entire building. It's been 38 years, and she's finally ready to start slowing down. She'll be selling the building to the Public Works Art Center in June. She will still lease 2 spaces from the Art Center and continue her business in the smaller spaces. I guess she's not really ready to stop yet. But as one of the original founders of the Art Center, and still a current board member of the Public Works Art Center, she could have gotten more money selling it to someone else, but she felt better helping the Art Center to expand. Thank you, Diane Frankenberger. Wish she was here today. But please check out her store. Pay her a visit. Now, I love this too. Women out there making it happen. Among my favorite lists of Summerville true heroines are 2 women who lived to keep the rest of us safe. During the most recent Third Thursday celebration at Hutchinson Square, I learned about 2 incredible local women. This is where my bold approach to research came in handy. I saw a female Summerville police officer walking by, so I just stopped her, asked her for an on-the-spot interview. She kind of looked at me. I said, I'm a historian with the Summerville Museum. She said, okay, I believe you. That's just what she said. Okay, I believe you. So I simply told her about my impending lecture and asked if there were any history-making women in the Summerville Police Department. Her stern official gaze transitioned to a beautiful, prideful smile. And she said, yes, she was my first supervisor. I'm like, all right, we're on to something here. She then went on to tell me about an African-American woman named Cassandra Williams, although she referred to her as Sandy. In a story featured in the Post and Courier in September 2016, the Summerville Police Department announced her promotion to rank of captain after 17 years of service. Williams became the first female African-American officer to hold the rank of captain in the Summerville Police Department. She was placed in command, talking about giving them systems some work. Listen to this. She was placed in command of the School Resource Officers Division, Criminal Investigations, Narcotics Investigations, Crime Scene Investigations, and Victim Services. She was clearly deemed a highly capable officer and leader. Wow. This promotion came after a career of stellar performance. Williams was named Summerville Police Officer of the Year in 2000 and 2008. She was also named South Carolina Officer of the Year in 2009. By my understanding, she's now retired and tired. Now, when thinking about the second hero, I remember growing up with the terms paramedic and fireman, used to describe those who risk their lives rushing into horrible accident scenes or burning buildings to save women and children in harm's way. Well, those women and children have grown up to become the ones doing the saving, along with the courageous men. I got to mention the men or I might get impeached. Therefore, this generation has learned to embrace the terms emergency medical technician and firefighter. In 2012, News 2 ran a story titled, Summerville Fire and Rescue Welcomes First Female Captain. As the story said, it was a historic moment for the Summerville Fire and Rescue Team. On this day, they celebrated Jennifer Yeagers, an 8-year veteran of the Summerville Fire and Rescue Team. For the first time in their history, the agency promoted a female to the rank of captain. Summerville Public Information Officer said, "This is a historic event for the department, with Captain Yeagers becoming the first female captain within the department since its establishment. As someone who grew up in Summerville, Captain Yeagers earned the opportunity to look out for her community as the emergency medical coordinator, responsible for the department's medical program. Summerville does not have exclusive claim to this hero. She also served as a paramedic with the Dorchester County Emergency Medical Services." Yes, I am about to close, I promise. When I posted on Summerville's community website this request, "I need names of historic, impactful Summerville women from history," I received 2 names. The first was Eloise Gertrude Poyes Howard, 1886 to 1960. I could not find much on this person except for the fact that she was born in Summerville. She had 7 sons and 1 daughter. The woman who posted her name said she was a talented seamstress who owned her own business. I could have used her for last month's Minority Owned Business lecture. The second name I was given was Caroline Austin Howard. She was the great niece of Dr. J.H. Austin, the black physician who donated the property used to create the original Austin Graded School here in Summerville. We actually have the cornerstone upstairs in our Black History room from that original school. Created this school in 1910. Caroline attended Austin Graded School and later became a teacher in Dorchester County and a school board member for 30 years. According to an article in the Post and Courier, Mrs. Howard was the first black woman to serve on the DD2 school board and also served as chairman. It also said that Mrs. Howard spoke about relations between the races here in the 1990s, saying there were some problems. But she commented, and I quote, "When you read about what happened in other places, I feel God blessed us. We never had anything like that here." And you'll hear that in a lot of my lectures, how surprised I was, a kid from the North, to learn the positive history of the relations, race relations here in Summerville, as opposed to Charleston or a lot of other southern towns. The legacy of Mrs. Austin Howard as an educator reminded me of a comment made by Wendell Nolan when I interviewed him for the historic Neighborhoods of Summerville lecture that we did here in October. Anybody know Wendell? Yeah, well known. He said something to the effect of, if you want to celebrate black women in Summerville, you need to focus on the schools. So in part 2 of the Summerville neighborhood lectures, don't go watch it now, I'm going to do a whole reset for you. Okay. I discussed the incredible story of the 3-room schoolhouse built for black children who lived too far to attend the bank school. This information came from Mr. Sinclair Mack, another who's probably approaching 90 years old now. He said the school only had 4 teachers, but that small staff included a lady named Eliza Wins, who taught him in 4th grade, Mrs. Reeds from Summers Quarters, who taught piano lessons. Actually, she taught him in 1st grade, correction. Mrs. Reeds from Summers Quarters, who taught piano lessons for 10 cents a lesson. And Mrs. Teresa Lemon, wife of Rollins Lemon. These women made the impossible possible for children who otherwise may have never received an education. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and local chapter Sigma Upsilon. Thank you for your pledge to support the educational efforts of our museum. Just through your continued attendance and donations, you're always welcome here. And most importantly, thank you to all the ladies we celebrated today, especially those who took the time to sit down with me and to attend the lecture in your honor as well. So we thank you.